No sirens, no gunfire, just an empty shelf. An old woman stands silent in front of the milk aisle. A child asks their mother why there are no eggs today. Slowly, abundance fades away, light as dust, heavy as a lump in the throat. And America's lights are still on. You think this is a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie? Number. This is real life, and it's happening in some of the wealthiest states in the U.S. How can a nation once overflowing with everything now face rows of empty shelves? The story below may force you to look at the American dream in an entirely different light. Join me in uncovering the empty shelves turning daily life into a nightmare in these 10 U.S. states. First, Washington. Washington, a place once envied nationwide for its ideal lifestyle, now shocks people with an unbelievable truth. You may have money, but it might not be enough to buy dinner. In just a few months, the two largest ports in the state saw cargo volume drop by over 25%. Planes didn't arrive in time, shelves went bare, and supermarkets limited customers to 2 cartons of milk each. People line up at dawn not for discounts, but out of fear there will be nothing left to eat. A woman in Everett choked up. "I used to dream of Washington as a place to start a new life. Now, every time I enter a grocery store, I feel like I'm reliving a crisis." What's terrifying is not the shortage itself, but the feeling of clearly being in America, yet no longer knowing where you truly live. Washington was once a dream. Today, it wakes people up. Second, Arizona. The land of glowing sunsets and retirement dreams is now where people endure 113 degrees Fahrenheit heat just to buy a bag of rice, a few apples. 30% of households here depend on food assistance. But in the desert, supermarkets grow scarcer each day. Major chains are closing down, forcing people to drive for hours just to find what used to be routine: a decent meal. A retiree outside Phoenix shared, "I chose Arizona to enjoy a peaceful retirement. I didn't expect it would be the place I'd have to learn how to survive." No one told them that. Just to buy food in America today, you sometimes need more than money. You need energy, patience, and the belief that tomorrow won't be worse than today. Arizona used to be a getaway. Now it reminds us, the heat outside isn't as scorching as the uncertainty burning in those struggling to hold on. Where are you living? Will there be a day when just eating a meal will cost you strength and faith? If that day comes, will you resist or accept it? Comment below and tell me, how would you deal with it? Third, Oregon. A place once blessed by nature now can't even feed its own people. Portland Port, the logistical lifeline of the entire state, has dropped to 28% of its capacity. Goods are stuck, food doesn't arrive in time, shelves sit empty in what used to be a thriving capital. People in Eugene, Bend, even Portland, have grown familiar with this feeling. Standing in long lines, wallet in hand, staring into nothingness. No rice, no milk, no answers. Food prices in Oregon are now 13% higher than the national average. But what hurts most isn't spending money. It's losing the right to eat full meals. One father exclaimed, "The land is still wide, the forest still green, but why must I beg for each meal for my child?" Oregon is sending a chilling message to the entire country. You can live amid abundant nature and still be hungry, because it's not hunger from lack of land, but hunger from lack of care. Fourth, Florida. Once known as a retirement paradise, now forces thousands of seniors to cut meals just to survive. Gone are the leisurely morning market strolls. Gone are refrigerators filled with tropical fruit. In just 3 years, more than 1,500 grocery stores in Florida have shut down. From big chains like Winn-Dixie and Albertsons to mom-and-pop stores that survived generations, formerly bustling coastal neighborhoods are now deserted. Fruit stands that once shined with oranges, pineapples, and avocados are now covered in dust. Even the middle class now feels the squeeze. food prices have risen by an average of 10.4%, higher than the national rate. For those living on fixed pensions, that's a steep slope with no handrails. A 70-year-old woman in Fort Myers sighed, "I used to believe retirement was a reward. But now, every time I open the fridge, I think about the electric bill, the meds, and I skip the meal." Worse yet, sometimes they have money but still can't buy anything. Empty shelves, broken supply chains, and fresh food has become a luxury. Florida once promised golden years under sunny skies, strolling past palm trees. Now only scorching heat, mounting bills, and growling stomachs echo through empty homes. No one expected that, in a state once overflowing, the elderly would be counting meals like in hard times. The real question isn't, why is this happening, but, in a wealthy nation, why are there people living as though they've been forgotten? 5. New York. New York, the city of lights, opportunity, and bold dreams, is now shrouded in an unusual silence. A silence not found in jazz rhythms, but ringing out from empty shelves, from shortages that come unannounced. In just 1 year, nearly 14% of independent grocery stores vanished from the city map. Once vibrant corners of the Bronx and Queens now sit quiet, shutters drawn. People still enter grocery stores daily, but walk out with lighter bags and longer receipts. Food prices have surged 11%, with milk and eggs spiking up to 18%. The rise is steady, quiet, but sharp as a blade slicing through already thin budgets. Families living on fixed incomes begin to cut out meals. Seniors living on pensions can only afford essentials, if they're even on the shelf. One damp afternoon in Brooklyn, a man stared at an empty fridge section in a supermarket, then turned and walked away silently. No words were needed. The whole space seemed to understand. New York still sparkles, but behind the lights, shadows creep into every kitchen. This story didn't start with a bang. It started with slow shortages, with hesitation before picking up a carton of eggs, with a new habit. Going shopping without expecting to buy everything. "Hey, where are you from? I'd love to know which city you're watching from. Leave a comment so we know we're not alone." A small act, but it gives us motivation to keep making more videos. Thank you and much love to you. 6th, California. Once dubbed America's fruit basket, California now makes people visit 3 supermarkets just to find a carton of eggs. From the fertile mountains of the Central Valley to the mega markets of Los Angeles, the word shortage used to be unthinkable. But in a short time, once familiar items like potatoes, milk, vegetables have become scarce goods. Food prices rose 13% in the past year, steadily like clockwork, quietly turning every grocery trip into a budget puzzle. Brands once symbolic of stability like Walmart, Ralph's, Safeway, now struggle with supply chain disruptions. Some stores have closed, others cut inventory, leaving cold, empty shelves in a state once known for abundance. In suburban Sacramento, a single mother walked out of a store with a smaller grocery bag than usual. No eggs inside, not because she ran out of money, but because all 3 stores within 10 kilometers had sold out. California used to be the place that had everything. Now, the place of plenty is where people feel the shortage most clearly. No chaos, no cries for help. Just simpler meals over time, shelves going unnoticed, and people's eyes growing heavier. 7th, Texas. A land of endless fields, cowboys, and the American dream is now facing a bitter paradox. There's land in abundance, yet people can't find a fresh meal. Over 2.3 million Texans are now living in food deserts, areas with no fresh food stores within 10 miles. That's not just a number, it's millions of cold kitchens, millions of dinners missing vegetables, meat, and milk, once seen as the basics of modern life. In just 2 years, over 800 small and mid-sized food stores in Texas have shut down, especially in rural areas where buses don't run and gas is a luxury. Elderly folks, carless individuals, single moms must walk for hours or wait on charity food trucks if they even arrive. In places like Rio Grande Valley or West Texas, the fields are still green, cattle still roam. But on dinner tables, only canned food and instant noodles remain. Texans don't lack land to grow food. They lack access and genuine concern from decision makers. A man once employed in oil, now jobless, stands in an empty kitchen in Amarillo. I thought hard work would be enough, but when the nearest store closed, I realized hard work can't beat distance. Texas, once a symbol of independence and self-reliance, now must ask, what good is self-reliance if people can't feed their families? Towns once bright with sun now lie quiet beneath the blazing sky. No tractor sounds, no marketplace buzz. Only waiting and the faint hope that tomorrow a food truck might arrive. Illinois. Illinois, once the industrial heart of America, now leaves over 150,000 Chicagoans, traveling miles just to buy a bunch of greens. In South and West Chicago, neighborhoods once lively with family shops and local grocers now show only vacant storefronts, faded "for rent" signs, and unplugged fridges. Over 150,000 residents now live in food-scarce zones, areas with no fresh food stores within accessible distance. In 2024 alone, more than 40 major stores like Walmart, Walgreens, and Target permanently closed in Chicago and its suburbs. This forced locals, especially the elderly, working families, and single moms, to rely on buses or walk for miles to buy milk, vegetables, and eggs. Prices are climbing like an anxious heartbeat, an average rise of 12%, with essentials like eggs, milk, and beef surging up to 18%. A 62-year-old man in Joliet shared, "Weekends used to mean grocery runs and family dinners. Now I count each can of soup, each loaf of bread, and drive 30 minutes just to find a store with stock." Illinois doesn't suffer from lack of land or labor. It suffers because the Food Network, supposedly a basic right, has pulled out of the very places that need it most. Outside, the city glows with light, but just a few blocks away, people cling on in a Chicago where every meal is a choice, not a given. All right. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button. If not, hit like and leave a comment telling us why. 9th, Nevada. Once the lights of Las Vegas symbolized prosperity, now thousands live off canned food and handouts from food banks. In just over a year, the demand for food aid in this state has risen 35%, a number not from poor districts, but from suburbs of glitzy cities like Henderson, Summerlin, North Vegas. Behind the bright lights of casinos and theaters lie silent streets where former workers in entertainment, hospitality, and service now find themselves jobless or part-time. They line up early for a few cans of soup, pasta, rice, powdered milk. Not out of laziness, but because food prices are rising as imports to southern Nevada drop sharply due to port backlogs and high shipping costs. A lighting technician who once worked the Vegas Strip shared, "I used to help create million-dollar shows. Now I count each can of tuna at dinner." Nevada still shines bright, but that glow no longer hides the emptiness in the fridges of tens of thousands of households. In a state once representing nonstop luxury, the fact that people's meals now depend on a roll of the dice from aid programs says something's quietly, yet deeply, breaking down. 10th, Michigan. Once echoing with the roar of mighty auto factories, Michigan is now silent as the sound of hunger rises in tens of thousands of empty kitchens. In Detroit, the once industrial heart, more than 40% of residents live in food deserts, areas without a single fresh food store within walking distance. No greens, no clean meat, no milk for the children. Neighborhoods that once buzzed with life are now empty. Stores shut down, delivery trucks no longer stop by, and prices are spiking like never before. Meat, milk, produce, up to 18%, while incomes have stayed flat year after year. Those who spent a lifetime building America now must choose between a bag of groceries or next week's medication. A 68-year-old man, once a car assembly worker, sat quietly outside his rented home in East Detroit and said, "I used to drive my Ford to work. Now I hitch rides just to buy a piece of meat for porridge. It's not that Michigan lacks food, it's that the system has forgotten the very people who once carried the economy. They don't revolt, they don't shout. They simply cross out items on their grocery lists and quietly survive, day by day, using the same hands that once built symbols of American pride. Hearing this, you may now understand how a nation once overflowing with goods can now have people lining up for greens, as empty shelves slowly turn life into a nightmare in these 10 U.S. states. Not because of laziness, but because there's nothing left to buy. When even eggs require second thoughts, when meals become math, the crisis is already near. Not somewhere far away, but right inside the American kitchen. And if today it's just milk that's missing, who's to say tomorrow it won't be hope? If you found this valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to stay with us on journeys that touch the heart. Thank you sincerely for watching to the end. Your support and presence are the reason we keep exploring and sharing more meaningful stories. This video was built using trusted sources and heartfelt contributions from the community. We strive to offer a view that is both objective and humane on the topic discussed. However, all information and stories in this video are for reference only and do not represent absolute truth or official conclusions.